As you can see, what we've done is we've used the basic sketch. Let's just turn it around so those can see. We'll throw them on the table in a minute. Leaving the salient features that sort of identified as being Newcastle, but also looking at it as if somebody's observing more through the landscape. So the plants and the animals that are depicted have all been described here, either in earlier publications or some around about that time. So certainly Wallace's work, the work of Joseph Lycett and others have informed the research for these. What we did to facilitate this was to go to the location, but also to go out to a Windmill field area, and we did some field research in that place to get a sense of the vegetation that was likely to be there. People like Leichhardt described that area quite well, and so a lot of the plants are sort of fairly typical of that landscape. Also, the Angophoras are sort of fairly, major tree species in the area.
The artwork, the Banksia, of course, that was very common in the Obelisk Hill plan that we visited, and the Coria. We were able to put in as many animals as we wanted and as many species of plants as we wanted to. It was left up to us what we incorporated in the artwork. We also had to make sure that we were practicing our art skills by creating depth, by overlapping things, making the foreground very sharp and detailed, and the background sort of a bit more fuzzy and out of focus because it is in the background. But everybody put a different spin on what they wanted to put in their artwork.
Yeah, painting a landscape is probably one of the most difficult things for students to get their head around, because you've got to sort of look at those areas of foreground, midground, background, and how you treat it.
Mine.
Oh wow! I like it.
That was my second attempt, because I as Anne suggested, not to have a huge curtain of botanical species in the front, because I just tried to put everything in there and it didn't quite work. But I also separated the animals a bit from the painting by doing a separate series of sketches down the bottom to make it a little bit more clear. And I thought, with illustration, you're actually giving a person an understanding of what they're looking at. And I thought that if it was the animals were incorporated in the landscape, if they're in the distance, you wouldn't actually see too clearly of what you were looking at. So that's why I chose to make them a bit more sharp and clearer on the bottom.
This one's a little more difficult because it's been rolled, obviously. But Angela did a black and white study here, but she's then chosen to partially colour. So retaining the fairly sort of bland black and white image of the surveyor and then superimposing the sort of plant material, the colour of the natural environment over the top. Because I think this is what we would like to do, is actually get the natural world out to the wider audience, because whilst our cultural history is important, so is our natural history,
Yes.
and I think we've got to see both of those things go hand in hand. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.